Now I want to introduce our speaker today. Marvinetta Woodley-Penn is a writer, performer, coach, and speaker committed to empowering individuals through storytelling, education, and the arts. She is the founder and executive director of Global Girls, Inc., a 25-year-old nonprofit that uses the performing arts to build confidence, communication skills, and life readiness in girls across Illinois and beyond. Under her leadership, Global Girls has engaged over 1,200 youth and families annually and led international exchanges to Ghana, Kenya, India, Tanzania, London, and Grenada. A former high school English and theater teacher, Marvinetta also brings 15 years of experience as a life coach, motivational speaker, and workshop facilitator. She now lives in Kalamazoo, where she remains deeply involved in the community through the Rotary Club of Kalamazoo, the Kalamazoo Civic Theater, and the Fair Housing Center of Southwest Michigan. She teaches classes at the Portage Zang Senior Center and hosts the All Stories Matter podcast on Public Media Network. And I had the privilege of being one of her guests on that podcast, and I got to share intergenerational stories for life, and got to talk about some of the things I learned from my parents, so I have enjoyed that. As a proud mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, Marvinetta was born and raised in East St. Louis, Illinois, in a nurturing family that encouraged creativity and civic engagement, values she continues to share with the world today. She will now come up for the reading.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for this awesome sound system. I'm always surprised to hear my story. Well, it's like, who's that? Oh, I want to meet her. This reading today really inspired me, so I asked Regina if I could read it. It's called Release by Peter Fredericks. I wish I were like the trees who let their leaves go gracefully without regret, or the tumbling stream that flushes silt to the sea, exchanging murkiness for blessed clarity, or the dandelion who bows its head to the subtle breeze, unleashing its future without fear or loss. Instead, I drive white-knuckled, defensive as we were taught, tense and guarded for what might come my way. I keep a deep grip on life. If you ask me for my dying wish, it would not be for 10 more wishes. It would be to let go of wishing anymore, wishing I'd made different choices and that I hadn't hurt you as I did, and to forego these old and dusty grudges that I keep like pictures in a shoebox beside my bed. I long to embrace my life with a lover's touch, or as you would an injured wren, precious, tender, true. Instead, regret and fear, twin anchors, hold me fast, close in against the shore. Cast off, I hear them call from the open exotic lens of my heart, and my heart yearns. But the waters in between my here and theirs hold unknown hazards, unlike this dark, familiar port. This day, a prayer to ease my grip on what once was or what is meant to be, that I might find myself content to drift and float upon life's boundless sea. Hello once again. I have never been in a church where the music selection was that short. I expected it to go on a few more minutes to compose myself. But anyway, I want to say good morning again, and thanks to Patricia for reaching out to me. Thanks for Reverend G. And to the UUCC, thank you, Regina, for saying that, because I thought I was going to have to say the entire name, and I know I would get stuck. But thank you for inviting me to share. Thanks, too, for trusting me to say something on healing worth you guys listening to. Now, after we agreed on the date and details of this talk, my mind started racing as anxiety set in. What if I don't have anything to say? What if I can't come up with anything interesting? Or what if this, that, and the other? And before I knew it, something inside whispered, let go. And just speak from the heart. With that, ideas poured like a sudden Kalamazoo summer shower. Or maybe I should say a sudden Portage summer shower, because I am in Portage today. Then words came, not in my time, but at the right time. And after a lot of pruning, this talk unfolded. I want to begin by saying that each of you is a beautiful and unique being. The fact that you are here is nothing short of a miracle. See, generations of your ancestors had to meet and reproduce all the way down to your mom and dad. Now, they met and made it, and one very lucky sperm penetrated that egg, and 9 months, give or take a few later, you arrived on the scene, fresh and eventually clean. Now, thank you, because I considered myself a rapper also. So if I say a few things that sound like Biggie or Tupac, blame it on my head, not my heart. And as you entered this realm, I believe that like all babies, you possessed 4 ever-present gifts. Number 1 is curiosity. Number 2, imagination. Number 3, trust, grounded in trusting yourself. Now, those gifts are now your key, and they open doors to people, ideas, experiences, including the opportunities to heal that can surprise and delight you, but only when you engage the 4th and most important key, which is love. So you got 4 keys, you got 4 gifts. 3 of them are keys that will open that 4th gift, the most important gift, which is love. Curiosity is that deep desire to know something intimately, up close and personally. Imagination, like our teachers always said, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Now, how many of you believe that? How many of you had dreams and you achieved those dreams? All right, they could be big, they could be small, but you ain't dead yet. And guess what? You still got time to make some dreams come true. Trust, that mustard seed of faith in the unseen. And then love, and I believe that love, I teach a class on love, because I do believe that if we had a common understanding of what love really is, it would truly, truly be a wonderful world. And our children would not have to experience some of the things that they experience today. I believe that love is the will to extend oneself for one's own growth or for the growth of another. I got that from Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled. When I was reading that book, I read that line and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do something with that one day. So I developed this workshop. Because if I ask each one of you out there, what is your definition of love? Guess what? There are a lot of people in this room and a lot of people looking online. You'd have a different definition, each one of you. Probably many of them would be based or grounded in an emotion. So much more. But I'm not going to go into that because that's not the topic of my speech. Let me get back to my script. I will go off on a tangent. Now, I don't know, nor do I need to know your specific ailment, but if you're living, you are living with something. Mine happen to be these knees. And I was just telling Regina, I was dancing all night Friday night, so the knees might not be as quick. They might not be as flexible as they could have been because I had on heels that were this high. Yes. I love that. Ask yourself, how would my healing shift If I met my pain with curiosity instead of fear, imagination instead of despair, trust instead of control, and love instead of self-judgment. Now, I know that this month was dedicated to healing, and you guys have had 3 speakers before me. If I repeat some of the things that they might have said, you can keep it to yourself. I'm going to try to say it in a different way, but it's all about the same thing, isn't it? Healing is all about us taking responsibility for ourselves. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't profess to be. I don't play one on stage, but I do know that I have some responsibility in that. You know, I went to the doctor. I'm going to keep an eye on that clock in front of me. I went to the doctor because my knees were hurting so bad. I danced at the Civic Theater, right? So I hadn't been dancing in a while, and I'm doing all these things that the young people do, and I'm gunning up and down, and my knees just started creaking so bad. I had to go to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, you do have arthritis. And I said, well, you know, you're not telling me the complete truth. Arthritis might be in my knees, but arthritis is not in my mind. So I am going to find another way to deal with this arthritis. And before I knew it, I started moving. I stopped taking that medication, those pain pills they gave me. I just started moving more and complaining less. And now my knees hurt every now and then. But I just tell my knees, you're not the master of me. You don't control me. I control this body. Doesn't hurt quite as much as it did before. Now, curiosity is the gentle opening. It asks what is happening within me rather than what's wrong with me. Not what's wrong with me, because there is nothing wrong with us. Things are happening to us. It turns judgment into exploration and fear into inquiry. It encourages self-reflection without shame or blame for what happened in the past and what somebody said or somebody else did. It's all about who? You. It's all about me, the most important person in the world. And thinking that way is not being selfish, but it's about staying focused. Because if I'm not healed, how can I expect to heal somebody else? If I'm not loving me, how can I love somebody else? If I'm not taking care of business at home, how can I go into somebody else's home and tell them how they should be? If I'm not attentive to my story, how can I appreciate your story? So it's about us, always. Imagination is the portal to possibility. It gives us permission to see beyond our current hurt and believe in a future that we cannot yet touch. It creates visions of hope and meaning. It allows us to rewrite roles from victim to survivor to creator. It inspires new ways of coping, expressing, and rebuilding. There might be another way forward. Now, how many of you in school were told, stop daydreaming? Oh, yes. Might be only a few raised hands, but I know there were some raised hearts there. I was one of those people. I was in math class, hated math. I love words. I love music. I love performing. We can't be everything. Our children can't be everything. It's important for us as parents, or grandparents, or great-grandparents to look at our children and look into them as we look at them. They were born with those gifts that I talked about a few minutes ago. They have their individual personalities just like you did. And just because school says you got to take these 5 main subjects and you got to get A's in all of them, you got to be proficient. I'd suggest you got to be proficient, but I'd also say dream, imagine, be curious, so you can start listening to your own heart. Trust. The foundation of security requires a solid foundation within the self or in connection with others. And trust begins as a fragile whisper. Maybe it's safe to feel something again. Maybe I won't fall apart this time. It reminds us of our capacity to endure and grow and recover. It opens the door to vulnerability. I know that's a catchphrase. That's a catchword these days. Oh, you got to be vulnerable. You got to be vulnerable. Some of us are so uncomfortable with that, but I'm not going to go into that because I got to stay focused on what I came here to talk about. Because that could be a whole other talk. Vulnerability. But it helps us to regulate the nervous system as safety calms physiological stress. It allows supportive relationships to enter and uplift us. It's okay to open again. And love is the deepest medicine. Love is more than affection. It is acceptance, nourishment, and presence. It is the will, again, to extend oneself for one's own growth or for the growth of another. And healing love can come from self, community, a spiritual belief, or creative passion. Love fosters compassion towards the wounded self, replaces shame with dignity, reminds us that we are worthy. We are worthy of care, restoration, and joy. It strengthens connections which can counteract isolation and despair. Love builds community and becomes a cure for loneliness, which is now an epidemic. Vivek Murthy said, loneliness kills more people today than cigarettes. Oof. I'm so happy to see you in community. It's depressing for me to interact with young people who say, I don't want to join anything. I'm content to be on my phone all day. You know, I'm a part of Rotary and a part of the Civic Theater because I love community. I believe that together we are so much better than we are alone. Bowling for One was a popular movie, a popular book that was written years ago. And I fear that it is even worse how we have become isolated in our own little fortresses that we've built to protect ourselves because we're so afraid to love, to become vulnerable. We cannot heal in our own little fortresses. A few questions I'd like to answer, you to consider. But don't worry, this is not a quiz. No one has to shout out any answers. Do you trust and believe that healing is even possible? What habits are standing in the way of your healing? What would you be if you were no longer identified with a pain or an attachment? Ooh, that kind of struck a nerve in me. I can look out in your faces and see that it kind of struck a nerve with you too. Who or what would you be if you were not identified with your pain or your attachment? And we're going to talk about those attachments in just a minute. Can you trust without evidence, have that faith of a mustard seed, and stay grounded in love long enough to let go and let in a healing worthy of you? Now, regardless of your answers, whether in the negative or affirmative, your answers directly impact your outcome. You believe healing is possible, and guess what? It is. You believe healing is impossible. You're right again. It is. If you tell yourself you can't, you can't. The mind is so powerful. There were studies of athletes who had been injured, and they were in the hospital, and they practiced a certain thing. They practiced their sport over and over again in their mind. And when it came time for a competition, they were just as competent as those people who had not been in the hospital, because the mind does not know the difference between reality and what we call unreality and what we call make-believe. The mind does not know the difference. So when you tell the mind, when the mind takes control and says, I can't, you can't. I challenge you today. Oh, she's challenging us. Yes, I challenge you today to go home after this service, after today's message, and try it. You just might like it. Now, I want to share a story about you. I want to share a story with you about a girl who started singing before she learned to talk. She loved how singing made her feel inside. Singing just felt right. She knew the words to every popular song and every sitcom theme song even. Her singing became the background around the house. Now, one day, her mother turned to her and said, "Would you please stop? Just shut up. And what makes you think you can sing anyway?" The girl stopped singing, and the feeling faded. But the subtle nudge never stopped, even when her own self-talk was drowned out by her mother's angry voice. The girl never knew what caused her mother's outburst, didn't know her mother's story, a single woman doing her best to raise her own children while working 5 days a week in another family's suburban home. The girl knew nothing of her mother's loneliness, her dried-up dreams, her tears that only her pillow knew. Years later, the teenage girl decided to let go and to heal from that painful moment and to take ownership of her own story. When she saw the high school choir director in the hallway, she chose courage over fear and said, "I want to sing a solo in the Christmas show." "Well, let me hear you sing," Mr. Johnson said. She sang White Christmas for him, and again a month later in the school's Christmas concert. Her mother was in the audience crying, this time tears of joy. That nudging told the girl to silence her mother's voice inside her head, her self-talk, and finally start listening to her own. Curiosity led her to speak with the teacher. She imagined herself singing on a stage before others, and she trusted her own talent, her own grit. She embraced self-love, which eventually opened the door for her mother to heal and express her love for her daughter. Now, why is it that we cling to hurt? We cling to what has hurt us more than we cling to what heals us. You know, we can cling on to memories and things and people, knowing all the time that all that is hurting us, rather than letting go and leaning into something that just might heal us. It took that little girl 12 years to let it go. And I'm inviting you to think about letting go as a pathway to freedom, restoration, and physical and emotional balance. Now, I am not a doctor. I am not advocating against doctors or whatever you go to for your healing, but I'm saying it all has to start with you. Thank you for that, yes. That's like an amen in the black church, amen. 3 things come to mind when I think about healing through letting go. Emotional healing, releasing the weight of the past that shows up in the form of memories. Our attachment to stories of the past that show up in our self-talk and in our conversation. It also refers to relationships and assumptions of how people should have acted in relationship to us. Isn't that something? She shouldn't have said that to me 20 years ago. He should not have done this to me. She should not have left. She should not have been angry. My wife should have done this. My husband should have done this. My friends, my children, everybody should have done this. No, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, according to their story. Now, what are you going to do to heal with your story? See, people come into your lives for a reason and a season. We might not like the way they are in our story, but we always have the option to change our story. We can say, goodbye, thank you for what you taught me. I no longer need that. I have learned that lesson. Not just to, and I didn't take the time of what time am I supposed to end? Because I didn't notice the time. I think I got about 5 minutes. No, 5 minutes or so? Okay. So, we always have the power to release people, memories, thoughts, things. I want to go to things I'm not going to be on my script for a minute. I moved to Kalamazoo because I had a feeling of ennui. I love that word. The feeling of, ooh, something isn't right. You ever had that feeling? You don't know what it is. You don't know where it came from. You don't know how to get rid of it. But it just sneaks into your consciousness, everything. Every now and then it's like, oh, It's like an itch that you can't scratch. But you know it's there and it's calling you. It's telling you something just ain't right. I got that feeling when I first left East St. Louis. I knew I had to go. Then I moved to Springfield, and I was a newscaster at a radio station. I got fired, and the NAACP called me and said, do you want us to fight for your job? Because I was the first black person they had ever hired in any capacity. I was like, no, do not spend your time and energy on this fight. No, I want to go. I hated it. Then I was teaching school. 19 years in the trenches. Loved it, loved it, loved it. But there was something saying, this is not you. Oh, and I left. I didn't retire. I don't have a pension. So I have to do speaking jobs like this. If you know of any others, let me know. But I had that feeling again. I have got to go, so I quit. And my student said, you're always telling us to take chances. You're always telling us to take risks, but I don't see you taking any risks. I gave them that environment. You can say anything. Because I think that children need to be listened to rather than preached to. Told, no, don't do this. Do it this way. No. Sometimes we just got to take a step back, remember how it felt to be a child and people were telling us that and how much we hated it. I know, maybe it's just me. None of you guys felt that way growing up. It's just me, but that's okay. So she felt comfortable saying that to me, and I was like, you're right. Teaching is comfortable. Teaching is, no matter what they say, I'm still a teacher. I'm a substitute teacher, and I love it. It's pretty easy. Go in at 7:30, get off at 2:30, got the rest of my day. All holidays, summers if I want it. Not bad. Close the door, nobody really knows what I'm doing. Oh, you should see the classroom today. That's a whole other speech, let me stop. But I quit. I let go of that very comfortable job. I had bills up the yazoo. Ooh. I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from. But I said, I can't do this anymore. And I felt so good. I never missed a house note, never missed a car note, never missed a bill. And before I knew it, I got a call from a musician that I used to work with. And he said, you want to go to Singapore for 4.5 months and work? I was like, oh, yes. Oh, yes. I rented out my house for a year, and it all worked out. Why? Because I chose, just like you can choose. I don't have to know what your ailments are. I don't have to know what your struggles are. But like I said, if you're still living, you got something. Raise your hand if you don't have anything going on. See? So, all I'm saying is take a risk, find your bliss. Ooh. You can heal. You can heal mentally. You can heal physically. You can heal spiritually. And if it's something that the doctor says they cannot cure, you can heal how you think about that. Because nobody in this room is going to accept death. But how you die is up to you. You can die holding on. Oh, no, I'm not ready. Or you can say, I'm ready. I've done it. I released when I needed to release. I let go of that junk that was piling up in my junk drawer, in my garage. I know a guy who I kept telling him, I dated him, I'm like, you got to get rid of some of this stuff in your house. You just have a tiny place, tiny condo. I went back to visit him. He says, you see how clean my place is? I said, because you got a storage unit for all that junk. Do we not do that? Well, I've got to keep those trophies that my children want. No, you don't. Take a picture, let it go. Well, I have to keep all those letters from my first boyfriend. No, you don't. Burn them up. He's with his wife. Well, I've got to hold. No, you don't. You can only wear so many clothes. Let them go. You will never be that size again. Let it go. So, I want to close. There were a lot of things I could have said, but I didn't, because I knew I needed to speak from the heart. Right now, I need to ask you to remember that you are a miracle. There has never been, and there will never be, another you. As far as I know, now I do believe a little bit in this and that and the other, maybe a little reincarnation, but I don't think I'm going to know too much about me as Marvinetta in that next incarnation. But I know that right here, right now, every day we get an opportunity to live our best lives. Whatever you determine that best life looks like, when you let go of what was hurting you, that is dead, stinking, and gone anyway. You let go of that memory. You focus on the here and now, these beautiful people in your circle, in your community, how you are giving to the world with the fun day. I wish I could be here because I would bring some cornbread. That would remind me of my mother. She made the best cornbread. Yes. You're in community. You are loving your lives. You are loving your children, your grandchildren. Let's hold on to that. And let's make this a wonderful, a delicious, a miracle day. Today, every day, for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our communities, for our world. Thank you.